buried alive and left for dead, until an 11-year-old girl changed everything. Welcome to our storytelling channel, where every tale carries a heartbeat. If you're watching this, we'd love to know, where in the world are you tuning in from? Drop your city or country in the comments below so we can see how far our stories are reaching. And if this story moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Tomorrow's tale is one you won't want to miss. A new story, a new spark, every single day. In a forgotten corner of Kentucky, surrounded by rusting fences and cracked sidewalks, lived an 11-year-old girl named Lily Thompson. Her home wasn't much, just a worn-down trailer, barely 20 feet long, parked at the edge of an overgrown lot. Inside, the air was always damp, the floor creaked with every step, and the kitchen faucet leaked a steady, hopeless drip. But Lily had grown used to the silence, the chill and the emptiness that filled the small space she called home. She lived there with her mother, a kind woman with tired eyes and a worsening lung condition. Most days her mother stayed curled, under thin blankets, coughing into her sleeve, too weak to do more than whisper. The medicine she needed was expensive, far beyond anything they could afford. Lily's father had vanished years ago, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and a mountain of unpaid bills. Since then, every meal had been a quiet prayer, every dollar a battle, and every night a gamble between hunger and hope. But Lily never complained. Each afternoon after school let out, she'd sling her torn canvas bag over her shoulder and head toward the woods that bordered the town. Most people saw those woods as dark, cold, and dangerous. But to Lily, they were a place of peace, a place where no one judged her for the holes in her shoes or the wear in her voice. She would spend hours there, searching for anything of value. Old cans, scrap metal, rusty wires, anything she could trade in for a few quarters to help pay for food or her mother's medication. It wasn't easy. The branches scratched her arms, the cold bit at her fingers, and sometimes she returned home empty-handed, her heart heavier than the bag on her shoulder. But the woods gave her something else, space to breathe, to dream, and to imagine a world beyond the trailer walls. People in town barely noticed her. She was the quiet girl who wore the same sweater every day, the one who never spoke unless spoken to. But behind those silent eyes was a heart that beat with fierce determination. Lily had seen more hardship than most adults, yet she carried it with quiet grace. She had no toys, no friends, and no safety net. Just a sick mother, an aching back, and a will that refused to break. And still, every day she walked into those woods, not for adventure, not for fun, but because survival depended on it. Lily Thompson was not a girl with much, but what she had was powerful. She had grit, she had purpose, and even though no one knew it yet, she was about to become the kind of hero stories are built around. Not because she sought recognition, but because, in a world that had forgotten her, she had never forgotten how to care. And that made all the difference. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped below the hills and cast the sky in a deep orange hue, Lily followed her usual path into the woods. The cold air stung her cheeks and brittle leaves crunched beneath her worn sneakers. Her bag was almost empty that day. She hadn't found much to sell. Still, she kept going, determined to make each minute in the forest count. But something felt different. There was a stillness in the trees that wasn't normal. Not the usual quiet, but something heavier. The kind that made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Lily paused near a patch of bare earth, her eyes narrowing. That's when she heard it. A sound, barely more than a whisper, carried by the wind. She froze. It wasn't an animal or the rustle of branches. It was a voice, faint, weak, almost lost in the breeze. "Help, please." Her heart jumped. She stood still, straining to hear it again, thinking maybe she imagined it. But there it was, a desperate, broken cry. Lily glanced around. There was no one, just trees and shadows and silence. Her pulse quickened, but something in her gut, something deeper than fear, urged her forward. She followed the sound, weaving between trees, eyes scanning every inch of the forest floor. Then she saw it, a pile of leaves unnaturally disturbed. She knelt beside it, hands trembling, and brushed them away. That's when she saw the hand, a dirt-covered hand, barely moving, reaching upward through the cold soil. For a split second, her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to run, but she didn't. Instead, she dropped to her knees. With bare fingers, she began to dig. The earth was hard, cold, and packed tight. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Inch by inch, she uncovered a man's face, swollen, bruised, caked in blood. His eyes barely fluttered open, and when they did, they locked onto hers with a look of pure desperation. Who was he? How did he get here? Lily didn't know, and right then it didn't matter. What mattered was that someone had buried this man alive. Someone had left him here to die, and she was the only one who found him. Tears mixed with sweat and dirt as she dug faster, harder, tearing her skin on roots and stones. Her small hands were raw, her arms numb, but she kept going. She clawed through, that frozen ground like her life depended on it. Even though it wasn't her life she was saving. When she finally cleared enough space to free his upper body, she saw the cloth tied around his mouth. She untied it, gently whispering, "You're okay now. I've got you." The man didn't answer, but his eyes, those tired, bloodshot eyes, filled with something Lily hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. In that moment, she wasn't just a poor girl from a forgotten town. She was someone's miracle, and everything was about to change. Lily's hands were shaking, caked in blood and mud, but she didn't stop. The man, whoever he was barely conscious. His lips were cracked, his face swollen, his breaths shallow and uneven. He couldn't speak, couldn't move on his own. But he was alive, and that was enough. Lily looked around the darkening woods. The sun had nearly vanished, and the temperature was dropping fast. She knew she couldn't leave him there. But how was an 11-year-old girl supposed to move a full-grown man through the forest? She didn't think. She just acted, sliding her arms under his shoulders. She heaved with all her strength. He was heavy, far too heavy. Her boots slipped in the frozen dirt. Her back screamed in pain. But she dug in her heels and dragged him inch by inch through the underbrush. Every root, every rock made the journey harder. Still, she pressed forward. She knew exactly where she was going. There was an old hunting cabin, abandoned for years, tucked deeper into the woods. Her grandfather used to take her there when she was little before he passed. It wasn't much, just a single room, 4 walls, and a rusted-out stove. But it was shelter. And right now it was the only shot this man had. By the time they reached it, Lily's arms were numb, her legs burning with exhaustion. The front door was swollen shut, but she kicked it hard until it cracked open. The inside was freezing. Dust floated in the air, thick as fog. But she didn't. She dragged him inside and laid him gently near the fireplace. With trembling hands, she pulled out the emergency lighter she always kept in her bag. Took a few tries, but finally a spark caught. She fed the flame with dry twigs she had gathered the week before. Slowly, a fire roared to life. She took off her tattered coat and wrapped it around his chest. Then she found the old tin cup. From the shelf, filled it with water from her bottle and gently helped him drink. He coughed, winced, but swallowed. That was enough. She moved quickly now, fueled by adrenaline. She wrapped his legs with her only blanket, stoked the fire, and whispered soft words. Words her mother used to say when she was scared. "You're safe now, I've got you, you're not alone." The man didn't speak, but his eyes followed her. There was something in his gaze, something heavy, awe, disbelief, maybe even shame. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't care that he wore a tailored shirt beneath the blood, or that his watch, cracked and dirt-covered, had once been worth more than her entire trailer. He was just a man who'd been buried alive and left for dead, and she was just a girl who refused to let that happen that night. As the wind howled outside the cabin walls and firelight flickered across their faces, the line between a child and a hero disappeared. Lily had nothing, but somehow, she'd given everything. The storm rolled in 3 nights later. The wind slammed against the cabin like fists, rattling the windows and howling through the cracks in the old wooden walls. Inside, the fire crackled weakly, fighting against the cold. Lily sat beside the man, spooning warm broth from a can over the flames. It was the last can she had. Her fingers were numb, her stomach growled, but her focus was on him. He was healing, slowly. The bruises on his face had faded to dull purple. He could sit up now, speak in short, raspy sentences. She'd learned his name was James Whitaker. At first, that didn't mean anything to her. But later, she remembered the name from a magazine cover she'd once seen in the grocery store. A billionaire tech CEO, smiling in a suit, standing next to a fancy car. Now he was barely alive, wrapped in a ripped blanket in the middle of nowhere. I was betrayed, he whispered that night, staring into the fire. My business partner, someone I trusted, he wanted it all, money, control. So he had me taken, beaten, robbed, buried. His voice cracked. Lily said nothing. She just listened. And yet, he continued, his eyes moving to her. It wasn't money that saved me. It was you. Lily looked away, tugging the sleeves of her sweater over her hands. You don't owe me anything, she muttered. James let out a weak breath. That's exactly why I do. The words hung in the air like smoke. He'd been a man of power, surrounded by people who bowed to him out of fear or greed. And now, in the darkest moment of his life, it wasn't a bodyguard or a doctor who found him. It was a little girl with torn shoes and no coat. That night, as the storm raged outside, he reached for her hand. His fingers were trembling, his grip weak, but his eyes were clear. You saved me, he whispered. When you had nothing, why? Lily stared into the fire, her voice was quiet. Because no one saved my mom when she needed help, she said. And I know what it feels like. To be forgotten. Silence followed, thick, heavy, sacred. James didn't cry, but Lily saw the way he blinked too often, how his jaw clenched against emotions too big for words. He squeezed her hand, and in that moment, something shifted. The next morning, he was gone. Not gone as in disappeared, gone as in rescued. Authorities had been searching for him for weeks. His GPS watch, cracked but still functional, had finally pinged. Helicopters came. Agents swarmed the woods. They asked Lily 100 questions. She answered only what mattered. But when the forest cleared, when the news vans left, and when the cabin sat quiet again, she was alone once more, back in her trailer, back to scavenging, back to the silence. Until one cold morning, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of her trailer. A man in a tailored coat stepped out, holding a thick envelope, R.E. You, Lily Thompson? He asked. She nodded. He handed her the envelope, tipped his hat, and left without a word. What was inside would change everything. Lily stared at the envelope in her hands. Thick, heavy. Her fingers trembled as she peeled it open, sitting on the steps of the trailer she had called home her entire life. Inside there was a letter, handwritten, shaky but strong. The signature at the bottom made her breath hitch. James Whitaker. She read every word slowly, her eyes wide, her chest tight. Dear Lily, you gave me back my life. Now I want to give you yours. Enclosed is the deed to a new home, one with working heat, clean water, and space for your mom to heal. A medical team is already on standby. There is also a fund in your name, enough to cover your education and every dream you've ever had but never dared to chase. You reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago, what it means to care without asking for anything in return. Thank you, James Whitaker. Lily's hand went to her mouth. Her chest shook with sobs, not of fear or hunger, but of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Under the letter was the property deed. A second sheet. A check. She couldn't count. The zeros. It didn't seem real, but it was. Everything changed fast after that. Within days, a moving crew arrived. Doctors came to see her mother, bringing machines and medicine Lily had only ever seen in commercials. A car picked them up and drove them, hours away, to a warm 2-story house with a garden, a bathtub, and a kitchen that worked. For the first time in her life, Lily had her own bed. Her mom had nurses. There was food in the fridge, real food, fresh bread, fruit, meat. But Lily didn't forget. She couldn't. The woods never left her mind. The cold earth, the man's hand pushing through the soil, the firelight flickering in the old cabin. So when she turned 18, she did something most people wouldn't expect. She went back, not to live there, but to build something better. Right in the heart of that same forgotten town, she used part of the fund to open a rescue center. She called it Whisper Creek Haven, named after the moment that changed her life and his. It was more than shelter. It was a place for lost kids, single parents, runaways, the broken, the invisible. She painted the walls bright yellow, planted trees, filled rooms with books and beds and food. Laughter replaced silence. Stories replaced shame. And every time someone asked why she did it, she would smile, sit down beside them, and tell the story. Of the man buried alive. Of the girl who had nothing but chose to help anyway. And of how one whisper in the woods turned into a roar of hope. Because sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness. One moment of courage. One child who refuses to walk away. If this story touched you in any way, if Lily's courage reminded you of someone in your life, or if her act of kindness sparked something inside you, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us, what part of this story stayed with you the most? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment of compassion that changed everything? Your voice matters here. Whether you're watching from a quiet town in the US or from across the globe, your perspective can inspire others just like Lily inspired James. This channel is about more than stories. It's about connection, reflection, and reminding each other of the good that still exists in this world. So don't just watch. Be part of the conversation. Share your thoughts, your feelings, or even just where you're watching from. You never know who might read your words and feel less alone. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. We have more powerful stories coming your way that you won't want to miss. Now take a breath and let us know. What does this story mean to you? We're listening.